friends, it's Emma here, the Bookish Princess. I should have gotten some pumpkins out for this video. I don't tend to decorate until the 1st of October. That's when I really get into the Halloween spirit. I don't judge anybody who decorates before that, but I wanted to make sure I got this video out because some people have been asking about it and some of you might be making your October reading plans. So last year I held my first ever readathon, the Boo To You Readathon. It was Disney Halloween inspired by Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party at the Magic Kingdom, the Boo To You parade. See, I love Disney and I love Disney at Halloween time, but then books and reading are the other thing that I love. So combining them all just seemed like a really fun idea. So many of you guys played along. It was so much fun to see how you interpreted the challenges and how you brought the kind of spooky Disney spirit into your reading plans. So we are going to do the Boo To You Readathon again this year. It's going to once again run throughout the month of October. There are 5 different challenges. I did change them up a little bit. Let's get into it. So this year I thought we would theme the Boo To You Readathon challenges around the lands at the Magic Kingdom, because one of the things I love about Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party is roaming around the park and seeing how like your favorite rides and places like just get sort of transformed, get spookified with like lights and music, extra Halloween magic everywhere. So the 5 areas for your bookish challenges are Fantasyland, Adventureland, Tomorrowland, Frontierland, and the Haunted Mansion. Yes, I know the Haunted Mansion isn't its own land, but it definitely deserves its own challenge in the Boo To You Readathon. I mean, at Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, I feel like so much of it is about the Haunted Mansion. In the Boo To You parade, the Haunted Mansion gets, you know, a pretty sizable chunk of that parade, and it's honestly probably my favorite part of the parade. So many great spooks, the ghost dancers from the ballroom, the grave diggers are so fabulous. This year they added a floating Madame Leota. She looks amazing. And of course now you can actually meet the grave diggers, which we did at last year's Halloween party, and they were so hilarious and spooky and fantastic. So we might as well start with Haunted Mansion Challenge. This is the only challenge that is kind of directly the same as last year's, because last year one of the challenges was read a book you think would be in Madame Leota's library. So that's kind of the same idea. I was talking with my brother Athos to see what books he would pick for these different challenges. And one book we were talking about was Frankenstein. I feel like this is one of the first classics that comes to mind when I think of Halloween. It's by Mary Shelley. This is such an amazing book. It's so beautifully written. Frankenstein is of course the doctor who creates the monster rather than the monster himself, and they're just beautiful descriptions of the scenery. A lot of this takes place in Switzerland, which I just got back from a trip to Switzerland. I'm hoping I'll have time to get another Switzerland vlog uploaded, edited and uploaded for tomorrow. There's actually a Frankenstein statue I think it's a Frankenstein's monster, in Geneva, which sadly we did not manage to see. We did get to Geneva though. The story behind the creation of this book also involves Switzerland and is pretty fantastic. Mary Shelley with her husband Percy Shelley and Lord Byron were all staying together near Lake Geneva, and it was like a stormy, spooky kind of night, and they decided to have a ghost writing story competition. It's pretty clear that Mary Shelley won that competition because Frankenstein is what she wrote for it. However, Lord Byron also wrote a tale which he didn't finish, so it's just a fragment of a novel. It sounds kind of spooky and intriguing as well. His sounds like it had more vampire elements. I don't actually know where, you know, around Lake Geneva the Shelleys and Lord Byron were staying when they had their ghostwriting competition, but now in my mind I'm just like picturing them in the library at the Haunted Mansion, like writing their ghost stories and agreeing to have this competition, and then of course Frankenstein comes out of it. So those are the 2 books that I'm going to be reading for the Haunted Mansion Challenge. So there are lots of ways you could interpret these challenges. You could read a book that is just sort of matches the vibe of the land, or you could read a book that maybe actually did itself inspire a ride or a movie that is represented in the land. So if we head over to Fantasyland, there are a couple of originals that I haven't read yet that I really want to read. There's the short story, or I think it's a short story, Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. This is the original that inspired Walt Disney's Pinocchio. Walt Disney, of course, took all these classic fairy tales and and retold them, and now I feel like the Disney versions have become sort of the cultural giants, the ones that you think of. But I think it's really fun to go back and read the originals. Last year I read Peter Pan, the original by J.M. Barrie. This is such a great book. It's got such a sort of quirky sense of humor and sarcasm all throughout it. It's really funny. If you haven't read Peter Pan, I would highly recommend it. Of course, you also have Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers. That original is again so fantastic, and I feel like perfect for this time of year because Mary Poppins definitely has magic and a bit of witchery about her. There are actually some sequels to Mary Poppins which I haven't read, and I was noticing there's some beautiful covers of them online, so I'm definitely tempted to go out and get those for this year's Boo To You Readathon. Also on my list is The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen. I haven't read the original tale. And then this one more matches the vibe of Fantasyland rather than being directly related to it. It's been on my list to read for a while. It's The White Witch by Elizabeth Goudge. Elizabeth Goudge is an author you've probably heard me mention before. She's one of my absolute favorite authors. I love the way she writes. It's so lyrical and beautiful, and she writes so beautifully about faith, and her characters are so warm and funny and just sort of jump off the page at you. And this one, it does involve, it sounds like, a little bit of magic. When I read her autobiography, The Joy of the Snow, like there was a kind of chapter about like paranormal, and it wasn't like creepy, but it was like a little unexpected. So I think this has kind of a little bit of that sort of magic bubbling up under the surface. White Witch it's a good witch, so a witch who kind of uses her powers for good. So I'm very intrigued to see what this Elizabeth Goudge is all about. And Fantasyland is all about good magic, so I think it should be a good fit. Last year one of my picks was the book The Witch Family by Eleanor Estes, which is such a sweet and cozy book. It is absolutely perfect for October, perfect for Halloween, and I think someone was mentioning that they read it with their family and really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for another one like that to read, I would recommend another Elizabeth Goudge, The Little White Horse. I'm sure I've mentioned this book before. It's probably Elizabeth Goudge's most famous work. It's a children's novel, but I think it would be enjoyable for anyone of any age to read. I have not reread it in a while. I was looking for my copy and I couldn't find it, so I'm gonna have to go dig that up. It definitely has like some magic underscoring it, because the Little White Horse, is it just a horse or is it a unicorn? So for Adventureland, of course, there are going to have to be some pirates on this list. Athos suggested The Ghost Pirates, a story by William Hodgson. I think he said that Lovecraft likes this story, or this author, but Ghost Pirates sounds kind of perfect for a Boo To You Readathon. I have on my list Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is such a pretty edition. I found it at a used bookstore last year and just couldn't resist it, but I haven't actually broken it in yet. I like to break all of my books in. Whenever there's anything on my shelf that I haven't read, I'm like, I need to read that. So I think I did read Treasure Island growing up, but I think it'd be fun to revisit it. This is another find from a used book sale that I think would be perfect for Adventureland. Doesn't it look like something you would find at the Agrabah Bazaar? This is the Rubaiyat by Omar Khayyam, which I was actually reading the introduction, and this is the translation by Edward Fitzgerald. And I think it was in the early 1900s when he translated it, and apparently there was a while where, a time when people, like if you met someone on the street and you found out that they also had read the Rubaiyat, the translation, like it was like you were in a secret club. Like you knew that person was a kindred spirit. So I definitely want to join this Rubaiyat club. There are like multiple editions, like several different translations by Edward Fitzgerald, because apparently he kept tweaking it. I'm excited to dig into this, and I think it will definitely fit the Adventureland vibe. Speaking of Agrabah, I'd also like to read the original Aladdin from Arabian Nights, the tale 1001 Tales. Arabian Nights is one of those collections where like it's been collected and translated and sort of transcribed so many times that there are lots of different editions of it. So I'm gonna have to pick out one. It looks like there are a whole bunch of different ones on Project Gutenberg that you can read for free. So I'm definitely gonna pick one out there. I think it'd be fun to read the original Aladdin. Moving into Frontierland, Athos was saying there must be some ghost cowboy stories out there, which I feel like there must be. I don't know of any, but if you guys know of any, definitely post down in the comments. I can't wait to see how you guys interpret these challenges, because it was so fun to see everyone's creativity last year and all the different books they picked to kind of fit the Disney bookish Halloween vibe. When I think Frontierland and Westerns, the first book that comes to mind is the Virginian by Owen Wister. I read this a little while ago. It's so good. It's such a great story. The characters are so strong. There's some romance. Of course, they're out on the frontier, making their own way, trying to survive, trying to get along, definitely some different rustlers and cowboys. Just such a stirring adventure story, and definitely fitting for Frontierland. Mary Halleck Foote is another author whose name comes to mind when I think of Frontierland. Her husband was a mining engineer, and so she traveled all over with him as he was working on lots of different projects out west. I read some of her short stories, and they're inspired by the different locations she was at, and they're beautifully written. I'd like to read some more, and those I think are you can download for free as like free Kindle books. I guess Liberty Square isn't technically Frontierland, but last year, for last year's Boo To You Readathon, I read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow for the first time, and it was so much fun. I'd never read the original story. It wasn't too long. It was really cool. I liked the descriptions of like the autumn feast that Ichabod Crane goes to, and of course the Headless Horseman who leads the Boo To You parade. So if you haven't read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, that is a fantastic one to read for the Boo To You Readathon. Last but not least, we come to Tomorrowland. Athos's pick for this, I don't think he's read it yet, but it's on his list, is Roadside Picnic by Arkady and Strugatsky. It's apparently a Russian science fiction book, but he thought it had some great like sort of spooky elements that would make it good for Boo To You too. So my first thought for Tomorrowland was Dune, which maybe could work for Adventureland too actually, because Dune is of course a desert planet where these sort of wild Fremen humans live. They're very superstitious. They have all sorts of legends woven into their culture. The book takes place like thousands of years into the future. I love how Frank Herbert doesn't really fill you in on what's happened like in between. Like it kind of feels as if you literally were transported to the future and given no guide, and like you're just noticing all these different inventions and different ways of doing things, and you're trying to fill in the gaps of like what happened, what is this new piece of technology. I recently picked these up from Amazon. I just love these covers. I had never read the sequels to Dune, so I recently finished Dune Messiah, which I really liked, and especially the way Dune Messiah ended, I'm super excited to check out. Children of Dune, look at that cover, is just so beautiful too. And I feel like this will have a great Tomorrowland vibe. And then one last book, which we'll have to see if I get to this or not. I feel like it's kind of been lurking on the back burner of my TBR for a while. But The Martian by Andy Weir, I heard lots of good things about that. And of course this was turned into a movie, and I did see bits of the movie, and it was pretty cool. Like it looked like it had a really interesting, neat storyline and premise setups. So a space tale should be good for a Tomorrowland pick. Alright friends, so those are my plans for the Boo To You Readathon 2019. I hope you guys will play along, and I would love to hear what you're reading, what you think of when you think of Fantasyland and a Fantasyland book, what comes to mind. If you think of a book you were going to read on the People Mover on the TTA, what would you read on Tomorrowland's superhighways? So if you post your own video, or if you post on Instagram or Twitter, definitely use the hashtag Boo To You Readathon or tag me so that I can find your post. I'd love to see what you're reading. Of course, you can comment down below and let me know there as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a magical and a spooky day. Bye guys!